What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on our Pro Charged LS GTO that's right here behind me. If you guys have been following along with the channel, you'd know that we just put a motor, transmission, full suspension, the blower, whole fuel system on this car. We picked it up as a roller a couple months back. It pretty much had nothing in it. If you guys want to see any of that stuff, you can go back on the playlist. We've got a playlist for all the cars that we have that will go over everything we've done to them or with them. There's a lot of good stuff on there, so make sure to check it out. Also, if you're not already, think about subscribing and ringing the bell. It'll let you guys know anytime that we post a video with any of the vehicles. So let's jump right into today's video. Alright guys, so this is the exhaust that has always been on the red GTO. It's been on there since I bought that car, and as you can see, starting in the back here, we've got Kooks axle back, and then it progressively gets uglier the further forward we go. But you've got the Kooks axle back meeting up to what looks like factory pipe, and then someone added that in at one point, and then you keep working your way forward here. We've got an X, and then we've got it welded to what looks like the factory flange. And then we've got the 3-inch mids. The only thing on this exhaust that I have done was I actually added these in because I couldn't get this car through emissions here in Connecticut. So we had to go ahead, and not sure if you guys can see in there, but we added those. They're basically just a cover on there, and they worked. I got it through emissions by playing with the tune a little bit. But what we're going to be working on today is changing that 2.5-inch pipe all over to 3. So we went ahead and picked us up some 3-inch pipe. I don't need stainless or anything fancy. I mean, the car sits so low to the ground that no one's ever going to see it. I just want it to actually flow better. I don't really care too much about how it looks. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm not the best welder, but we're going to make this thing work. So I went ahead and ordered us a new 3-inch X pipe. We've got some 3-inch 45s on the way, and I've still got to figure out what we want to do for flanges. I was hoping to find flanges with like a little section of pipe on them so I could just slip fit and then weld. But it looks like we might have to actually get the flanges by themselves and then kind of do what it looks like here, just weld it to the actual flange, but we'll see when we get there. So I'm going to go ahead and start taking this thing apart and figuring out every little thing that we're going to need so I can get everything ordered up, and then we might start playing around with some pipe and go from there. Alright guys, so most of the parts for the exhaust system have showed up. We've got a little X pipe here, 3-inch in and out. We've got some ball and socket style flanges. I've got 4 3-inch 45s, and then of course the 3-inch pipe. We did decide to go with all aluminized piping for this, just because of A, it's cost effective, and B, this thing doesn't really see salt or sand or anything like that. It gets put away in the winter like most of the cars, so I think this is going to work out just fine for us. It's also not a huge deal as far as weight is concerned. We don't need this thing to be super light. The thing's heavy as hell as it is. So we're going to go ahead and get after it and start modifying the mid pipes. Alright guys, so we got the car out of the garage this morning, got it up on our little lift here. Right now we're working on figuring out what we want to do with the exhaust. We took some of the wrap that we had on it off, and you can see that the mids have 3-inch pipe, and then it like tapers down to a 2. These were on the car when I got it. Not 100% sure why it's like that. I'm assuming that when they bought this setup, they bought it for to be able to hook up to the factory exhaust with no other modification. So I'd assume that's why it tapers down so hard. So what we're gonna have to do is cut it basically at least here or back more so that we can put our new flanges on and try to make it work so that we can mate it up to the rest of the system. So that we can put this 3-inch flange on, something kind of like that, so that we can put the X pipe on this side of it and have a flange here and bolt everything together. So that's what we're working on, and we're gonna just try to get this thing mocked up and get after it. Alright guys, we're gonna make our first cut here. We're gonna be cutting the 2 or 2.5 flange that's on this mid pipe off so that we can get back to this 3 so that we can put a flange or possibly put the X pipe right to the mid pipes. So we're gonna go ahead and make our first cut and get this thing started. Alright guys, so we got the first section here done. I just got done welding it up, and we started with the mid pipes. We're working from the headers, working our way back, and what we ended up doing on this piece here, because nothing was the same length, these went with a set of pace setter headers that I had a while ago and sold, and now we're running the American Racing headers. So when you bolted these up, they didn't line up with each other, and they were actually kind of on an angle. So my dad actually came up with the idea of making like almost like a pie slice out of one of the flanges. I believe it was this one, and what we did was we made the pie slice like that so that the pipe was a little crooked. So by making that slice, it allowed us to cock the flange that we were putting on there so that we could get it back to straight, which ended up working out pretty well. I'm no professional welder, and we're working with this little guy here. We got it a long time ago, but it definitely does the job, and it came out better than I thought it was going to, and I think it's going to work out just fine. So we've got our flanges on the mid pipes now, so all we have to do is make the flanges that are going to go to the X that'll be right behind the mids, and then the pipes from there all the way to the axle back. Alright guys, so we are back at it again today. As you guys seen yesterday, we did the mid pipes here. We got the flange started onto these. Now we've got the other end of the flange, which I think what we're going to do is take a piece of that 3-inch pipe. We're going to cut a 4-inch section off it and use it as a spacer, basically, because where these mids land, they're like an inch or two off from each other, and I believe it's because of the old headers that these mids went with, and it makes the pipes not even. So what we're going to try to do is use that sleeve so that we can butt this one up like this, and then if we have to, create a space, whatever length we need it to be, so that at the end of the X, everything from there back should be even with each other. So that's what we're working on right now. Dad's getting ready to cut that pipe, and then we can go ahead and take this stuff under the car and mock it up and see what we're looking like. Alright guys, so this is what I was trying to explain to you. We've got the sleeve inside here, so it's joining the X pipe and the end of this flange here, and then we've got the other flange we're mocking up right now. This will be up higher, obviously, more like that. And then now we just measured, I don't have enough hands to show you, but when we play with it a little bit, we can get the separation that we need in the middle right. And then once everything's finished welded and like how we want it and stuff, we'll probably put like a little brace up here between the two mids to hold them separate with just a tack weld, so if we ever need to, we can grind it off and take it back apart. But with this up here like that, we've got enough play to get these lined up, and we can spread the pipes apart from each other a little bit and get everything lined up. So right now we're going to go ahead and cut a 5-inch sleeve for this side, then come back under here, make sure everything works, and then we'll start tacking stuff and welding stuff together. Alright guys, so we've got this thing pretty well jigged up here how we want it. We're going to have to cock it just a tiny bit when I do my tacks. But you can see that we went ahead and used some ratchet straps and some blocks of wood and just anything we could use to try to hold it for us so that we didn't have to hold much when we're trying to weld it. So I'm going to go ahead and throw a few quick tacks on this thing, and then we'll take it back out and finish weld it. Alright guys, so we've got the mid pipes and the X pipe on. Everything is bolted up. We didn't tighten it all the way yet, but I'm pretty happy with how everything's coming out. It's landing in a very good spot for us. So the next thing that we need to do is go over to the old exhaust on the ground so that we can get the Kooks axle back system that we have and get it apart so that we can bolt it up here on the car so we can see where we land and what we need to use and what we need to make it so that this X pipe can meet up with that axle back system and get this thing finished up. So we've got some parts laid out here. We just sprayed them all black. We got finished welding them up. We had a couple issues with pinholes in a couple of the pieces here. A lot of the welds came out perfect and fine, no leaks or anything like that, but there were a couple that had little pinholes when we went to pressure check them, and we wanted to go ahead and take care of those now so that we didn't have any issues with air getting sucked in between like pulses of the cylinders and causing the AFR gauge to be off. So one of the things we did was we got rid of that old welder we had. We went and picked up this little titanium 170 MIG. I like it a lot better. It seems to weld a lot cleaner and just an all-around better welder than the 1980s machine we were using. But what we're gonna go ahead and do now is I've got some exhaust wrap left over from a previous project. So we're gonna go ahead and dunk that in a bucket of water and then go ahead and wrap these pipes. Probably gonna do about from the fake cap forward up to right before the flange, and then use one of the metal zip ties. Do the same thing with that one, and then with this one I'm not 100% sure. Alright guys, so as you'd seen, we threw a quick coat of paint on these pipes after we got them welded up, and then I went ahead and wrapped them with the exhaust wrap, which you can see everything that we want wrapped for now is wrapped. I didn't wrap the X pipe. I don't think I'm gonna, but we always can later if we want. But what I'm gonna do now, I have them taped off again, is I grabbed some of the DEI high temp silicone coating, and this is for exhaust and wraps, and it helps protect the wrap and make it work even better and last longer and just protects it in general. So we're gonna go ahead and hit it with a couple coats of this stuff real quick and see how they come out. Alright guys, we're back at it this morning. We're getting ready to put the mids on, hopefully for the final time with the mids. You guys can kind of see how it came out with the paint that we used on top of that exhaust wrap. I think they look pretty decent. I'm pretty happy with them here. Let's grab one, I'll put it in the sun so you guys can see it real quick. I think it looks alright. But we're getting ready to put these guys on. And then we can go ahead and set our X in there. Get the clamp snug for the flanges, and then we can go ahead and figure out what we're gonna need for the straight sections that are gonna come out of the back of the X to probably somewhere right about in here. and then we'll have to go to the 45s and have it made up with this Kooks axle back here. So that's what we're going to work on now. So we're going to go ahead and get those things slapped on, and we'll get back with you guys. Alright guys, so it was too much of a pain to try to show you while we were under the car, but this is pretty much what we've got here from the X back. We're actually getting ready to clean it up so we can go ahead and weld it. I've got these nice stainless steel flanges from Ace Race Parts, I believe it was. I'll link them in the description like I always do, guys, and I'll try to tag them if I can. But it's a nice thick stainless steel flange. So I bought an extra one of these so that I can try welding it to a scrap piece of pipe we cut off here, just to make sure I'm going to be able to get a decent weld on it. I've never tried welding stainless steel to regular mild steel, but we're going to go ahead and clean up all of these slip fit connections, and then we'll get this thing welded and we'll show you guys when we get it on. Alright guys, so this is what we've got so far. You can see we've got it fitting nicely into the flange that we're going to use right there. So we're going to go ahead and work our way forward, tacking everything. We're going to tack it to that flange. Then the slip fit here with the 245s. And then back to this straight section. We're using some wire to hold everything up right now. And then we've got this straight section here, which we actually went ahead and made a slice in. Dad had an idea of slicing one side of the pipe and then kind of folding it over instead of slicing the whole pipe on angles, like doing pie cuts basically, and then welding it back together. So we gave it a shot and it actually worked pretty well. We just sliced part of the pipe, folded it over, and basically like kind of creased it almost, and then just welded it back in the section that we cut. And then you can see the straight section goes forward up to the X that I already showed you we made, and then the mids up there, which are all wrapped, and we've got the flanges hooked up and everything. Nothing's finished tight, but it's tight enough to where we could continue on. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the welder set up, and I'm gonna go ahead and start doing some tacks and get this stuff all tacked up. And then you can see I've got this scuff down here. I think we're gonna go ahead and spray all this black when we're done, just so it looks decent from the back of the car. So let's go ahead and get this thing banged out. Alright guys, so we're back out here at it again today. As you can see, I got that longer section welded up, the one that I showed you under the car last night. Went ahead and finish welded this piece. Got the flange on there. Not the prettiest weld I've ever laid, but I was trying to weld the aluminized mild steel to a stainless flange. I didn't realize I ordered a stainless one. It's whatever. It worked, got the job done. So we're gonna go ahead and set this guy on the car, make sure everything still lines up, probably tack it to the X pipe, and then start making the this piece for the other side. So let's go ahead and get under there and get this thing bolted up. Alright guys, so here's that bigger section that I just showed you on the car here. Got it bolted up to the Kooks axle back. We've got our flange right here. Everything seems to be lining up good still from yesterday, so we're pretty happy with it. Like I said, still got some work to do on my welds, but it works. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and get the welder out here, and I'm gonna lay a nice tack on both sides of the pipe at the X, and then we'll leave it like that for a while so that we can start working on the other side and get the other side ran over to that flange, because we don't want to start working on that side until this one is at least nicely tacked so that nothing can move on us. We want to make sure that when we get that side put together, that everything else is where it's going to be for life. So I'm going to go ahead and get the welder out, and we'll get that thing tacked up and start getting this side done. Alright guys, so we're back out here again today trying to get this thing finished up. You can see we did some mock-up yesterday. We got it pretty close. We decided to actually use basically a pie cut on one end to try to straighten out where it goes into the flange for the 45 here. It worked out pretty good. We still got to tack it up in place. So right now we've got everything cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and set it under the car there, and then we'll get everything tacked up, and I'll show you guys what we're working with. Alright guys, so we're out here at it again today. We got the welder set up. We're going to go ahead and get ready to weld these hangers on. I went ahead and ordered a bunch of different types. We weren't really 100% sure which ones we wanted to use, but I think we're going to go ahead and give the like traditional style here a try. We're going to be using these rubbers here. They've got multiple holes in them. I seen them, I think Evil Energy or something makes them. They were pretty cheap, but I like the fact they had 3 holes because it gives us a little bit more options and adjustability if we need it. And then, as you can see, I went ahead and ordered 4 of the traditional style hangers, and we'll just weld these right onto the pipe down here somewhere, cut them shorter if we have to. So I've got 4 of those, and then I did go ahead and order a few of these as well. These are more of a, like, you weld them on to the pipe down here, and then up here you can either weld this piece or bolt this piece to the car, so that if we didn't have any stock locations, or if you were building like a car that just doesn't have any hanger mounts. But I think we're going to just hang on to those for now. I don't think we're going to need those. I think we'll be able to get away with the traditional style. So we're going to go ahead and get under the car and get these things set up and get this thing finished up here. Alright guys, so this is one of the spare hangers. We were going to use this one at first, but I calculated a little bit off, so we had to bend a new one. But I just wanted to show you guys how we're doing it. I bought them a little extra long so that I could make slices in them like that, and then you can bend it to whatever you need it to be. Obviously, we could have fired up the torches and bent it that way, but it was just easier to just make a little slice, throw it in the vise, and bend it over. So we are going to go ahead and get the ones we need tacked on, and then we're going to pull this exhaust back off, get them finish welded, and then we can paint this thing and get this thing on the car for good. Alright guys, so as you can see, I made like a sling out of rope, and we have the whole exhaust section here hanging off this tree. I'm getting ready to paint it. Everything is pretty much done. We've got our hangers on. I taped those off where they're going to go into the rubbers. This section forward has already been wrapped, and I painted as much as I wanted to, so I'm just going to paint right up to that line. We're going to paint the X and everything. The hangers are going to get painted. The flange, I taped a line because those are stainless, but when you weld mild steel to stainless, it will rust. So I made a tape line there. We're going to paint that. But everything here is pretty much how it's going to be, so we're going to get this thing painted, and then we can get it on the car for the final time.
I want to be the best in the game.
I forgot to mention to you guys, we are using the VHT Flameproof. It's basically header paint. It's good for 1300 to 2000 degrees. I've used it a couple times now and it works pretty good. This is what it looks like now. We did 2 light coats, and the 3rd coat we went pretty heavy. Just gonna let it dry for a little while now, but it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. But as you guys can see up here, I forgot to mention before as well, you can see how much better that weld looks than all the other welds on this thing. Well, kind of a dumb moment, but we got our bottles filled when we first got this new welder. Somehow we got a 100% argon tank, which we have one of those for our TIG machine, but we ended up with a second argon bottle, and it was running on the MIG. I couldn't figure out why this welder was welding like crap, so I made it work. Well, I ran out of gas towards the end of doing the exhaust, went and got the bottle filled, got home, and was getting a lot better welds. So that's what it must have been. Pretty unfortunate though that we didn't figure it out until our last couple welds, but it is what it is. It's just one of those things. I'm not going to redo the whole thing right now for that. The exhaust system will probably get changed up eventually if we change the combo, so we're just going to run with it. But we're going to let this thing dry, and then we'll get it back on the car. Alright guys, so we've got the rear section, the Kooks axle backs, back on here, and we've got our big pipe that we made up there. Everything's coming together good, nothing moved, everything fits nicely. So we are going to go ahead and get our gaskets ready. These I bought with those flanges that I welded onto our new pipe. I got these in the flanges from Ace Race Parts. So we're gonna go ahead and use some ultra copper on those. just because that's what it had on the stock system when it had the Kooks axle back on it. They used that, so we figured we'll throw a gasket with some of that in there and it should seal up nicely. Then while he's working on getting those gaskets in, I'm gonna come up here and start throwing all of our sensors back in. We've got the 2 upstream O2s, the 2 downstream O2s, then the AEM AFR gate or AFR sensor, and then we've got some band clamps for the front by the headers. I really don't like using those style band clamps. I would have liked to weld the flange onto the header and onto the mid pipes, but we just didn't end up doing it. I think we're gonna run with the band clamps for now, see if we have any issues. If it all works out, we'll leave it. If we have issues, we can always add a flange later. So we're gonna go ahead and get this thing put together. All right guys, so we got the exhaust on. We got all the O2 sensors and AFR sensors mounted and in. And you got the mids that we had to customize. Got those sensors in. The flanges that we added here, the X pipe and 3-inch pipe. Sorry if it's shaky guys, I'm on a creeper here. But the straight pipe all the way back here to our 45s that we used. And then into the Kooks axle back that comes out the back here. I think it came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. So I think we might try to set the fuel pressure and see if we can't get this thing to crank up.
Alright, let's put the fuses back in.
Attempt at a first start, guys. Alright guys, so as you had seen, we got this thing cranked up in the last couple clips here. Super happy that it finally fired up. It was like the first try. We cranked it a few times to try to make sure that the oil pump was going to prime. We seen oil pressure, so we turned the fuel pump back on. And once we did that, we flicked the key and this thing fired right off. As you may have heard, it was popping and banging a little bit. It was all coming out of the exhaust. So we're not sure if that's tune related and it's just dumping a whole bunch of extra fuel since we have a whole new fuel system on this thing, and maybe it's just causing it to pop through the exhaust, or if we have something else going on. We're gonna send a data log off to the tuner and see what he has to say about it. If he thinks it's tune related, obviously he'll take care of it, and if he thinks it's something else, then we'll go ahead and dig deeper and we'll take care of it ourselves and try to figure out what could be causing it. But as you guys seen, we finished up the exhaust. Super happy with how that came out. Now that the whole car has 3-inch the whole way, I'm really happy about that. Can't wait to see what it's gonna do and how it's gonna sound and all of that good stuff. If you guys aren't already, please think about subscribing and ringing the bell. It'll keep you up to date on all the GTO, the Duramax, and the Hellcat videos. I really appreciate you guys checking out the channel, and we will catch you on the next one.